Welcome back to my channel. To all my amazing viewers, thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. Your love, comments and shares mean everything to me. Grateful for each of you. Let's keep growing together. With love from Whispers of Hope. The applause thundered through the grand ballroom of the Heartbroken Tower, cameras flashing from every direction as Isabella Hart stepped onto the stage. She was elegance itself, tall, poised, wrapped in a tailored emerald silk gown that complemented her icy blue eyes. Her signature blonde waves framed her face like a golden crown, the face of a woman who had everything. Except love. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate the launch of HeartSync 4.0, she said, her voice calm and composed. "This isn't just a product, it's a promise to keep connecting lives." Cheers followed. She smiled for the press, posed for pictures, nodded at investors, and the moment she could, she slipped away, heels clicking softly down the corridor toward her office. Inside, silence greeted her. The clinking glasses, music and laughter from the ballroom faded like a dream behind her locked door. Isabella sank into the leather armchair beside the wide glass window that overlooked the Manhattan skyline. She reached for a glass of untouched champagne on her desk, but paused. Her gaze fell on a silver-framed photo, her and Mark, one of her many exes, grinning beside her yacht in Santorini. She hadn't removed it yet, probably out of habit. Tonight she'd seen him again. On the arm of a younger heiress, Talia Wyndham, daughter of a media mogul, just a few months after he'd sworn she was the one. She turned the photo frame down, face first. It was always the same story. Charming men with big promises, quick to fall for her, until they saw her world. Then came the gifts, the expectations, the veiled envy. None of them truly saw her, the woman beneath the millions. They loved the empire, not the empress. Her heart, once so eager for warmth, had learned to wrap itself in caution and cold logic. Love was no longer on the agenda. A soft knock interrupted her brooding. "Come in," she said, expecting her assistant Lisa or perhaps a security check. The door opened, and in stepped someone new. A tall, well-built black man in a dark, tailored suit. His features were striking, strong jawline, warm brown eyes, and a calm confidence in the way he carried himself. He didn't stare like most new hires. No wide-eyed admiration, just steady, respectful professionalism. "Good evening, Ms. Hart," he said. "I'm Derrick Cole. HR mentioned I'd be reporting to you as your new executive assistant." "Right." Lisa had mentioned something about replacing Jordan, her last assistant, who left abruptly to join a rival firm. Isabella assessed him silently for a few seconds. She'd grown skilled at reading people, what they wanted, what they were hiding. But Derrick's expression didn't reveal much. Calm, unreadable, but not cold. "Fine," she said at last. "Let's start tomorrow. You can familiarize yourself with the executive schedule, client lists, and ongoing projects. Lisa will hand you the files." "Yes, ma'am," he said with a respectful nod, then turned to leave. "And Derrick?" she called. He looked back. "I value confidentiality above everything. My time, my image, my work. If you're here for anything other than work, walk out now." There wasn't a flinch of offense in his eyes, just something soft, understanding. "I'm here to work, Miss Hart. Nothing more." She nodded curtly. The door closed. And yet, long after he left, her thoughts lingered on the way he'd said it. The days that followed were surprisingly smooth. Derrick was professional to the core, always on time, composed, efficient. He never overstepped, never complimented her appearance, never tried to impress. But he did anticipate her needs. She liked her coffee black with cinnamon. He remembered. She preferred emails summarized in bullet points. He adapted. When she had a press conference, he ensured her car was at the right entrance before she even asked. There were small things, too. When she was having a rough day, he subtly moved her afternoon meetings. When a board member made a sexist joke in a conference room, Derrick said nothing, but later quietly ensured that same board member's influence in the next vote was limited. She noticed. Still, she kept her distance. After all, she'd met charming before. Then came the night of the investor fallout. Hearttech had been working on a revolutionary AI interface, but early prototypes leaked and the media twisted it into a controversy. Overnight, stock prices dipped. 2 major investors pulled out. Her CFO quit. She stayed late in her office, furiously typing out damage control emails. Her chest was tight. Her father had lost everything in a market crash. She refused to relive history. A gentle knock. It was past 11 p.m. Derrick stepped in holding a takeout bag. "You haven't eaten all day." She blinked. "I'm not hungry." "You don't have to be," he said quietly. "Just take a break." He placed the bag on the table. Thai food, her favorite. He didn't sit. He didn't hover. Just nodded and turned to leave. "I don't know who to trust anymore," she said suddenly. He paused. "I trusted people with this company. With me. They always leave when it matters." Derrick turned, his eyes gentle. "That's not love, Isabella." It was the first time he used her first name. And yet, it didn't feel out of place. "What would you know about it?" she whispered, more bitter than she intended. "More than you think," he said, stepping closer but keeping a respectful distance. "My mom raised me on 2 jobs and love, taught me to never chase someone for what they had, only for who they are." Her throat tightened. There was no flirtation in his voice, just honesty. "Thank you for the food," she said softly. He smiled, just a hint. "Get some rest, Miss Hart." She watched him leave. Her heart did something it hadn't done in a long time. It skipped. The next few weeks unfolded like a quiet bloom. Isabella began to relax around Derrick. Not too much, not all at once. But she laughed more in his presence, asked about his thoughts on strategy meetings, listened when he spoke. She even caught herself watching him, how he offered his seat to interns during crowded meetings, how he called his mother every Sunday, how he read history books on lunch breaks. He never bragged, never tried to be noticed, and that made her notice him even more. But it wasn't until the charity gala in D.C. that everything shifted. She invited him out of necessity. Her PR team insisted she couldn't arrive solo again. He hesitated before accepting. That night, in a charcoal black tux, Derrick looked like something out of a magazine. Heads turned. Still, he stayed close to her side, professional as ever. "You're different tonight," she murmured as they danced a slow waltz on the marble floor. "So are you," he replied. Their eyes met. There was something between them now. A pull. A promise. But nothing was said. Not yet. Isabella Hart wasn't used to feeling vulnerable. Not in business, not in life, and certainly not in matters of the heart. But as she stared at her reflection in the mirror of her Milan hotel suite, she could no longer deny the truth. She was falling for Derrick Cole. The company retreat had been meant as a morale booster. After the investor fallout and media backlash, she needed to reassure her executive team, so she flew them to Italy for 5 days of strategy meetings and networking events. Derrick had accompanied her as always, organized, reliable, and quietly essential. But it was the moments outside the meetings that kept creeping into her thoughts, like yesterday evening, when they walked through the cobbled streets of the old city. She had worn flat sandals and he'd teased her for ditching her heels. She had laughed, a real laugh, not the rehearsed corporate kind, or this morning when she spilled espresso on her blouse during a rushed breakfast. He didn't panic, just passed her his handkerchief and said, "It's just coffee, Isabella, not a boardroom scandal." He was different. He didn't try to charm her. He didn't gawk at her money or speak to her with polished flattery. He saw her, and she hated how much she wanted to be seen. Later that night, as the team mingled in the hotel's rooftop lounge, Isabella stood by the glass railing, sipping wine and watching the city lights shimmer below. Derrick joined her, dressed in a navy blue suit that made him look even taller, more refined. But he said nothing at first, just stood beside her, letting the silence speak. "You're quiet tonight," she said. He shrugged, taking it in. "It's a beautiful view." "It is," she murmured. "But sometimes I look at all of this, Milan, the power, the luxury, and wonder if it's really mine or just a set I'm performing on." He looked at her. "It's yours. You earned it. She smiled faintly. You always say the right thing, only when it's true. Their eyes met, and suddenly the space between them felt charged. Derrick, she began, her voice softer now, have you ever felt like the world only sees you for what you can give, not who you are? All the time, he said without hesitation. Growing up, I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through college. People only saw a black kid from the Bronx trying to make it. Nobody asked what I dreamed of, what I believed in. I know what it's like to be overlooked and overestimated at the same time. Her eyes flickered with emotion. She nodded slowly. Sometimes I want to disappear, she whispered, to be someone else for a while, someone ordinary. You're not ordinary, he said. You're extraordinary, and not because of your money or your company. It's the way you fight, the way you care. Silence stretched between them, warm, intimate. And then it happened. Not dramatic, not planned. A quiet, slow lean toward one another, a breath shared, a look held too long. Their lips met, gentle, uncertain, yet full of meaning. When they pulled apart, Isabella stared at him with wide eyes. I shouldn't have. It's okay, Derrick said quickly, stepping back. It won't happen again. I crossed a line. No, she said, voice low. That wasn't you. It was me, too. Neither spoke for a moment. Then Isabella turned away. I need time, she whispered. He nodded. I understand. But they both knew something had shifted. Back in New York, things didn't go back to normal, not completely. They were careful, professional. But the air between them was different. Tension simmered just beneath the surface. She found herself watching him when he wasn't looking, admiring the way he treated everyone with respect, from interns to janitors, how he'd bring her coffee exactly the way she liked it, how he stood just close enough to make her feel protected but never smothered. One evening, after a long board meeting, Isabella found herself working late. The office was mostly empty. Rain pattered against the glass windows as thunder rolled in the distance. Derrick appeared at her door, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. Too late for coffee, he said. But cocoa still counts. She smiled, exhausted. You're too good to be true. I'm just trying to be real, he said, setting the mug down. I meant what I said in Milan. You don't have to be alone. She looked up, searching his face. Do you feel it too? Or is it just in my head? I feel it, he said softly. I've felt it for a while. Her hands trembled as she reached for the mug. Then why haven't you said anything? Because you're you, and I'm just the assistant. Her head snapped up. Don't say that, you are not just anything. He held her gaze. Then don't treat me like I am. The tension broke like lightning. This time, their kiss was not hesitant. It was deep, certain. She reached for him. He pulled her in. And just like that, the walls began to fall. The following months were a dance of secrecy and discovery. They kept their relationship quiet, meeting outside the office, talking late into the night, sharing small, sacred pieces of themselves. Derrick introduced her to his favorite jazz bar in Brooklyn. She took him to an art gallery where she bought her first painting after making her first million. He made her feel safe. She made him feel seen. But of course, the outside world crept in. Rumors started. Why did the CEO spend so much time with her assistant? Why was Derrick seen arriving with her at weekend events? The media speculated. Board members whispered. And Isabella, for the first time in years, didn't care. Until the confrontation came. At a shareholder brunch, one of the board members pulled her aside. Isabella, he said, voice smooth and sharp, you've built an empire. Don't throw it away over sentiment. She narrowed her eyes. Over what? Come on, he chuckled. A black assistant from the Bronx. It's not a good look for a woman of your stature. You know how this world works. She didn't answer, just stared. And then, calmly, she stood. If that's your opinion, you can resign at the next board vote. I won't tolerate racism disguised as concern. Gasps followed, but Isabella didn't flinch. She had spent her whole life being underestimated, envied, loved for the wrong reasons. And for once, she was ready to fight for something that was real. That night she told Derrick everything. He sat in silence, listening, and then he did something she hadn't expected. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead and whispered, "You didn't have to defend me. But thank you." "I did it for me too," she whispered. "I'm tired of pretending, tired of running." He looked into her eyes. "Then let's stop running." The room smelled of fresh flowers and warm vanilla. Soft lullaby music played in the background, and outside the large windows of the private hospital suite, Manhattan's skyline glowed under the early morning sun. Isabella Hart cradled her newborn son in her arms, his tiny fingers curled around one of hers. Her platinum blonde hair was loose around her face, and her usually fierce eyes were now glassy with emotion. Beside her, Derrick sat with quiet awe, one hand on her shoulder, the other gently stroking their baby's head. "I still can't believe he's real," Derrick whispered. "He's perfect," Isabella breathed. They hadn't chosen his name until that very moment. "Cameron," Derrick said softly, his voice shaking. "Cameron Elias Cole." She looked at him and smiled. "Our little legacy." 16 months earlier, such a moment would have seemed impossible. After the confrontation with the board member at the shareholders' brunch, things changed quickly. News leaked of Isabella's relationship with Derrick. The headlines were ruthless. CEO dating her assistant? Power passion. Isabella Hart's new romance breaks the mold. Gold digger or power couple? The coverage was invasive. Some praised her for being bold. Others accused Derrick of climbing the corporate ladder with charm instead of competence. But the worst were the insinuations masked in subtle racism, questions about his background, his qualifications, even his intentions. Isabella had faced media storms before, but this one felt personal. Derrick offered to resign more than once. "I don't want to be the reason people discredit you," he said one night, sitting on her living room couch as rain tapped the windows. She turned toward him, eyes fierce. "You're not the reason, you're the truth. They'll never stop talking, Derrick. Not because of you, but because they hate the idea that I chose love over politics. You deserve someone who matches your world," he whispered. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. "You already do." To protect the company, they made one smart move. Derrick stepped down from his role as her assistant and accepted a promotion in the strategy department, where he truly belonged. He worked hard, spoke little, and let his actions silence the critics. And slowly things began to settle. Her investors saw that Hart Tech didn't crumble. Her board grew quieter. Her clients still signed deals. And her employees? Many respected her even more. She was human, real, and she was happy. A year after that first kiss in Milan, on a quiet summer evening in Tuscany, Isabella walked down a candlelit garden aisle, wearing a simple off-white satin gown, her hair loose in soft curls. There were no paparazzi, no dramatic press releases, just 50 close friends and family. And at the end of the aisle stood Derrick, looking every bit like the man she always dreamed of, but never believed existed. Their vows were handwritten and heartfelt. "I used to think love had to be earned," Isabella said, "that it was a transaction or a performance. But you taught me love doesn't want anything back. It just shows up and stays." Derrick's voice broke as he spoke his. "I never imagined I'd end up in your world, but now I can't imagine life without you. You taught me to dream again, not about success, but about home." They danced beneath the stars, barefoot on marble, wrapped in each other like the rest of the world had melted away. When Isabella found out she was pregnant 6 months later, she cried, not because she was scared, but because for once, it felt right. Derrick held her in his arms that night, both of them overwhelmed. "I thought I couldn't have it all," she whispered against his chest, "but now I have everything." He kissed the top of her head. "It's only the beginning." Now, in the quiet hush of the hospital suite, she looked down at Cameron, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Derrick stood and kissed her forehead. "You're incredible, you know that?" "I look like I fought a lion," she laughed weakly. "And won." He smiled. A soft knock at the door brought in a nurse with breakfast and a bouquet of white lilies. A handwritten card read, "To the most powerful woman I know, now also the most beautiful mother." Tears welled in her eyes. She remembered how empty her penthouse used to feel after failed dates. The lonely mornings, the robotic routines, the coldness of boardrooms and meaningless compliments. Now everything felt full. The baby cooed softly, and Derrick leaned over to kiss his tiny forehead. "I wonder what he'll grow up to be," Isabella said, voice low. "Whatever he wants," Derrick said, "he'll have our love behind him." "That's more than I ever had growing up." She reached for Derrick's hand and squeezed. "And he'll know he was born from real love. Not fear, not status. Just love." A few weeks later, back at their home, a serene estate on the outskirts of the city, life settled into its new rhythm. Isabella returned to work gradually, with Derrick by her side in the evenings as they took turns rocking Cameron to sleep. Sometimes they would walk around the garden at sunset, talking about everything and nothing, career dreams, parenting fears, new baby smells, their wedding memories. "I used to wonder," Isabella said one evening, "if I would ever be able to love without fear again." Derrick looked at her and smiled. "You didn't need to love without fear. You just needed someone to stand beside you while you faced it." She leaned into him, the baby monitor buzzing softly in her pocket. "I spent years looking for the perfect man," she said. "Turns out he wasn't perfect. He was just honest and brave and kind." Derrick wrapped his arms around her. "And madly in love with you." She laughed into his chest. "That too." In time, Heart Tech expanded across Europe. Derrick took a leading role in global operations. Cameron grew into a happy, curious toddler with Isabella's sharp eyes and Derrick's smile. They took vacations without press, read bedtime stories, hosted family dinners, made pancakes on Sunday mornings. But most of all, they lived, not as CEO and assistant, not as millionaire and employee, but as equals, as partners, as a family. One day when Cameron was 5, he asked his mother, "Mommy, how did you and Daddy fall in love?" Isabella smiled. "Well," she said, pulling him into her lap, "I had a very big company and a very tired heart. And your daddy?" He walked into my office one day with a kind smile and strong hands. He didn't ask for anything. "He just stayed. And you kissed?" He giggled. "We did." She nodded, smiling at Derrick across the room. "And then you loved each other forever?" "Exactly," she said. "Because sometimes, when you're not looking, the realest kind of love finds you." 10 years later, the grand atrium of Heart Tech Global Headquarters buzzed with excitement. A massive crowd had gathered for the unveiling of a new charitable wing, the Coalheart Foundation, a global initiative focused on education, mentorship, and entrepreneurship for underprivileged youth. The glass walls gleamed under the sunlight as photographers captured every moment. At the center of it all stood Isabella Hart Cole, now a little older, still stunning, with quiet power in her posture and a softness in her smile that hadn't been there a decade ago. Derrick stood beside her in a crisp grey suit, holding a tablet and smiling as their son, Cameron Elias Cole, now 10, confidently walked onto the stage with a microphone. "My parents always told me that love is stronger than money," Cameron said, his voice clear. "That you can build a business with your brain, but you build a life with your heart. And today, we're building something big, not for profit but for people." The audience clapped as Isabella wiped a proud tear. When the ceremony ended, they stepped into the quiet of her corner office, the same one where Isabella had first met Derrick all those years ago. She stood by the window, looking out at the city that had once felt like a cage, now a canvas for everything they had painted together. 10 years, she said. Derrick walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. 10 years since I brought you that cup of coffee and accidentally deleted your meeting notes, she laughed. I still say that was sabotage. He grinned. Best mistake I ever made. They looked down at the courtyard where Cameron now played with a few other kids, board members' children, interns' children, and scholarship recipients alike. No one cared whose last name had how many zeros behind it. "Do you think he knows how much he changed us?" she whispered. "He will," Derrick said. "One day when he falls in love, and it scares him as much as it healed us." She turned in his arms, resting her forehead against his. "We built an empire, Derrick. But this life, we built it together." He kissed her gently. "No walls," he whispered. "No status," she replied. "Just us," they said together. And with that, they walked hand in hand back into the light, ready for the next chapter. Not as a CEO and her assistant, but as a family who proved that real love never checks bank statements, only heartbeats. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Bye. See you in my next